recording. All right. So, welcome to the spreads class. Not know how to use this. Oh, this one. Okay. So, spreads. So, I have what is a debit spread, what is a credit spread here, but this is the basic dictionary definition, I guess, Investopedia definition, whatever you guys like to call it, of a debit spread, because some people are can learn that way of straight hard definitions. But my definition of a debit spread is basically like a naked option, but cheaper. As you'll see, we can play, you can literally play Tesla, Amazon, some of your very, very expensive names for 200, 100 bucks. This is life-changing for small accounts. Small accounts, if you've ever tried to play Amazon, Tesla, you know that you're going $300, $200 out of the money, basically buying options that are not going to do anything for you, but go to zero and expire worthless. Sure, you'll get that one lucky lotto that maybe goes 200 to 1,000, whatever, but that's not common. And I'm sure if you've been trading for a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's it's as you'll see, debit spreads are amazing. The only problem with debit spreads is the way you gain profit is through time decay, because as you get closer to expiration, and the way you receive full profit is when they expire in the money. And again, I'll get more into that, but that's just the general overview of debit spreads. They act very similar to naked options, and you have basically the same idea of how you play them as a naked option. You are playing it directionally, and you want it to go in a certain direction and expire above a certain price. But I will show you that when we get there. So credit spreads, totally the opposite of debit spreads, totally the opposite of the way you'd play a naked option. But this is awesome. So credit spreads are basically, you are selling someone an option. If you've ever been in a play, an option where you're just sitting there, it's not moving, theta's eating you up, it's like, oh, this is so annoying, whatever it is. There's someone on that other end that has sold you that option that's totally taking that premium, that's getting killed, that's getting crushed. And you're sitting there like whoever's on that other side playing that naked option is getting eaten alive. But these big hedge funds play credit spreads, credits, whatever. They sell puts, whatever they do. They're the ones getting that premium, and it's so amazing once you get on the other side of that and start selling those. 80% of options expire worthless, so their favor, the probability is on your side with credit spreads, and it's really a huge way to grow your account. It's a little slower, obviously, because theta does take a little while to kick in, as if you've ever played a naked option, you know what I'm talking about. But again, 80% of them expire worthless. You want them to expire worthless, so the margin for error on a credit spread is huge, as you'll see, and I'll go through them. But I'm a huge fan of credit spreads. Personally, this week, if Tesla does decide to reverse, I would have turned 900 to 5,000 in 2 weeks just using credits and debits. SPY, Amazon, Tesla, and I'll send a screenshot of that. Right now, the account isn't doing too great because of the Tesla, but it's still up. It's right now it's 900 to like 2,000. So right now, and if Tesla holds up, it'll be 900 to 5,000 in 2 weeks just with spreads. So they are profitable. You just need to know what you're doing, and that's why I'm here to help. So got a little bit more here. I have some examples, some debit spread examples, and I want to get into how you find max loss, max profit, and all that stuff. And again, I can show you the calculation for max profit, but why do you need to figure out that and like show you that mathematical profit? I'm going to give you a way. It's kind of doesn't really make sense, but the hardcore way to find max profit, if you look it up, is like some weird calculation that just you don't need it at all. So I I'll teach you how to do that. Max loss for a debit spread is simply what you pay for it, nothing more, nothing less. If the option expires out of the money, you will lose $207, nothing more, nothing less. And obviously you can sell early for, $100, whatever it may be, but you will not lose anything more in a debit spread than what you pay for it. Credit spread, different story, but we'll get there when we get there. So for this is not something that I would take. This spread that I just took a screenshot of, this 725. Actually, this is from a month ago, but I right here again, nothing that I would play, just an example. But what you have here is a $5 wide strike, and I'll go into picking strikes, how wide they should be, and my personal preference, and what I use for those a little bit later. But again, it doesn't matter. When you're setting up a debit spread, you are buying the strike closer to the money and selling the strike farther out of the money. When they get to expiration, and when you get to expiration, if Tesla closes above 725, you receive full profit, which is $293. And this is because, and you receive this profit because this sold, and this is where it gets a little complicated. I'm going to take it slow. You guys can take notes or whatever you want to do. But again, this will be recorded. This is where it gets a little complicated, but I'll try to break it down. So when this expires in the money, these are both in the money, and when options expire in the money, they can be exercised. So if this, say Tesla expires at 726, whoever owns this 726 call that you sold to someone will exercise that for 100 shares. Those 100 shares will come from this 720 Tesla call that you bought, that's yours. And then the difference between that which is lower, a 720 call, which is yours. The difference between those 100 shares, that profit difference will then go to your account. That's where it gets a little complicated, but that's the whole thing with how you receive the profit and basically what goes on in the back end. But that doesn't really matter for what we're doing. That's just the way it goes if you're interested and intrigued or how that works. So your max profit is described on how I do that, but the way to calculate it, and again, can be a totally complicated mathematical equation, but it doesn't have to be. The way I like to do it, simply this. So the width is $5 wide, but again, you're controlling 100 shares. So basically it's $500 wide. So I do this, I do 500 minus 207. Now, if this was $10 wide, I add another, 2 zeros on it, then be $1,000, and it'd be 1,000 minus 207, and it'd be a little under $800 profit max. So that's where it gets a little complicated. And some brokers, I don't use Tasty. I clearly use Robinhood. Tasty tells you your max profit, your max loss, and most good brokers do. But basically, depending on the width, so again, this is 500 minus 207. You subtract the width from your total cost, would be your max profit. And I'll show you examples of where max profit changes, and again, all depends on your width. But yeah, that's it for debit spreads, and I will again go over that and take it slow if you guys have any questions on whatever I just went over. Okay, so credit spreads, basically the opposite of debit spreads. And here I have an example, and I put this screenshot up here so you guys can see your percent chance to profit if you sell these strikes. This credit spreads are amazing, as you can see clearly, because you have 70% chance, and you could scroll down, you could go even farther down the money, out of the money, for higher chances of profit. Some spreads you can sell have an 85% chance of profit, which is great. I mean, options, as hard as they are, to have an 85% chance to profit in something is really unheard of in the market. So for this, it's basically the opposite. You are selling something. This is a put credit spread. While I like Robinhood only because if you're new to this, it tells you before you place the order what exactly you're doing. Especially I get questions, is this the right spread? Is this whatever? If you're in Robinhood, it literally tells you what you're doing before you place that order, which is awesome. But for this put credit spread, what you want and your goal for the put credit spread is for these to expire out of the money. And like I said, 80% of options expire worthless. So there's a high probability that potentially Tesla closes above 680 for you to profit $82. But, the downside of having such high probability spreads or a high probability play is your losses are significantly higher. So say Tesla closes 670, you'll lose $168. That is, you know, a 1 to 2 risk to reward, and generally that's not too good because that's a significant loss compared to your profit. But when you play spreads, especially credit spreads, it's very important to keep a tight stop loss because that can go against you fast once it gets towards your strikes. But you have a lot of room to breathe once you place the order, and once you really get into the spread and get some experience, you'll feel how they move and what's going on with that. But same way to calculate your max loss. This is a 2.5, 2.5 with, so 250 minus 82, that's your max loss. And as you get wider, your max loss gets larger, your total credit gets larger, and I have examples of that as well. But yeah, Tesla, as you can see over here, Tesla at this time, this was a month ago, was at 700, and this is $20 out of the money. If you're selling this 680 put, you have a 70% chance for this to expire out of the money in 2 weeks from whenever I took this screenshot. So the probability is there. And also, you know, when you're placing spreads, theta can eat you up or whatever, and you can literally just turn your phone off once you place the spread and you know what's going on, and maybe it's a slow day, nothing's moving. You can take that data and put it on your side and just leave your phone. You don't have to monitor it, which is a great thing. People have jobs, they come up to me, they DM me, whatever. They're like, I need something because I have a full-time job, I have kids, I have this, I can't be on the charts all day, and spreads are your friend. To be able to place an order where you know that I have an 75% chance, 80% chance to profit, and not really have to look at it, not really have to stress about it all day is awesome. Especially when you have a job, can't really be on your phone, whatever your case is. It's totally the way to go. But and compared to something, say like if you were scalping, you need to be aware on your phone, can't really have any distractions, you can't have your boss calling you, you can't have your kids crying to you, nothing like that. For this, it's like you place it, come back the next day, forget about it, maybe you're up, maybe you're down, but you're not going to be up or down by much, and it's just a stress-free way to trade, and I love credit spreads, I really do. But that's that for the example. Picking the width. So this is something that kind of gets a little complicated, but I'm always picking close strikes, and I'll show you why. But the closer the strikes, the lower the break-even point, because your strikes are closer together. For debit spreads, think about it this way. You need both of your strikes to expire in the money for profit. So you go wider on your strikes. Yes, you have more profit potential, but that means that the stock has to move a significant amount higher for you to receive your full profit. If your strikes are wider, that means, again, has to move significantly more. So the risk is increased. Your lower return, obviously, because if your strikes are close, you receive a lower return because the price difference is so close. And less exposure to the Greeks, the higher you go, the Greeks start to move, but that again gets a little complicated. I'm not too focused on the Greeks and the spread because those are also complicated to calculate as well. But I have here a bunch of different examples of call debit spreads, put credit spreads, and their width. So I wanted to show you guys here. I don't have the calculations written on the side, but I can someone in the group was the other iPhone. I feel bad. Whatever, I can't do anything about it. That's what happens. People messing with the stuff. But okay, so with this call debit spread, as you can see I'm on the left here, if you're not on the paying attention, total cost is 85, and as we've gone over, 250 minus 85, your max profit is hold on, max profit's 165. Obviously, you know, lesser max profit compared to something as wide as 1,000 or 10, and I'll get into that. But you also now have BA only needs to close above 242.5 for you to receive full profit. Now, if you were to go over here in this BA spread, you would have to get BA to close above 250, $8.50 higher than this spread. So it becomes a little harder to do. But when you're expecting volatile plays, or the market's moving, maybe you see a huge breakout on the weekly chart and you want to go wider spread for a higher return, this is when you want to do it. But generally, most of the time the market doesn't move that well, or whatever's going on. So I always like to pick closer strikes, and I pick multiple of them and pay a little more, because I just don't think that it will go in my favor if I'm $10 wide on my strikes. But for this spread right here, why is it attractive to some people? Because your max profit on this one is, hold on, $747 for 253 risk. So it is a great return on your investment, totally. But again, as I've said, it's just harder because Boeing usually doesn't run $10 in a week, or whatever the case may be, and it struggles to stay above as it should. So going a little closer strikes is my preference. But as you trade, as you do spreads, you maybe this will be your preference. But so it's just personal, whatever. You gotta figure it out yourself. Now, going over to the put credit spread side, as you can see, difference in credit. Credit, you receive this credit. You want this to go down to receive profit. Obviously, this to go up to receive profit, because you're selling these to someone else. You want this to go down for these contracts to lose value. So you're receiving this, and you want to buy them back at a lower rate to receive the difference. And I'm sure there's going to be questions on that, and I'll totally go over it. I think I totally messed up on how you profit for those and how you lose money, but I'll go over those if you have questions on that. But similar to the debit spread, your collateral now, you have collateral. You have to put up cash collateral for, because if these go in the money, you have to pay the difference in the exercised shares. So that's what happens when they expire in the money. Your cash collateral will go towards the difference in the exercised shares. Even if they don't expire in the money and they go against you, you're paying the difference in the exercised or potentially exercised shares. That's why you lose that money. But here, your cash collateral is defined by your width. So this is 10. So basically 1,000, because you're utilizing 100 shares per contract. So this is 1,000 minus 275. You'd be receiving 275 credit. What's the downside to that? You're putting up $725 worth of cash collateral. So the risk is a lot higher. Compared to this, you're receiving less. This spread over here, this is a $250 minus 93. You're only putting up $157 cash collateral to receive $93. So the risk and what you're putting up is significantly less, but obviously the total credit is less. So the risk to reward is different based on your width. And it's also different based on how far away you go on your strikes. If you play naked options, you're out of the monies, you're super out of the monies, your $10 out of the monies are basically worthless. And if you were to sell, say, a $280 put or $280 call on Boeing, obviously Boeing maybe in a week is not going to go to $280, but the $280 call on Boeing is only like $50. So you're not getting much collateral there. But the probability to profit is super high. If you were to sell the 280, say 282.5 calls on Boeing, you would only receive, say, $5 in credit. You'd have to put up, I don't know, hundreds of dollars for that. But you receive, $5 if that's what you want to do. You want to receive $5 a week. That, knock yourself out. It's just not worth it, because the one time that Boeing runs $50 in a week, that'll knock you all out. But that's that for the little presentation there. I know I went through a lot, and I hope I wasn't too fast. I hope I wasn't, whatever, bad teacher. But I want to open this up to everyone to ask questions in the chat. If you guys do have any questions, and if it does get out of control, I'm going to have to end it. But I do have this recorded, and if you guys want to go through this again, what I said is totally fine. I'm going to send this out, and for people to okay, yeah. So another great education platform to learn spreads Tasty Trade on YouTube, the Tasty Trade channel. Those are the people of Thinkorswim. They made Thinkorswim and they sold it, and now they also made Tasty Works. Those owners are amazing with spreads, and I learned most of what I've learned from them. So look up Tasty Trade on YouTube, and that whole channel is full of education. I highly recommend it if you want someone else to teach you or just another way to learn. Tasty Trade on YouTube, amazing, amazing people. They have a ton of different strategies. I only went over debits and credits. There's things called butterflies, iron condors, crazy names. There's jade lizards. There's, awesome, awesome strategies that I highly recommend once you figure out spreads to try out. And Tasty Trade will tell you what to do and how they do it. So I think, yeah, those are awesome. Jay gave me his Zoom. He said he upgraded it. He did not. This ends in 10 minutes, which can be good because I'm sure this is going to get wild once I open this up to questions, but I'm going to resend this link out for a little Q&A session. Either way, this is upgraded, and I'm going to open this up right now. I'm going to open up the chat. If someone starts, going crazy in the chat, I'll just kick them and no one else will be allowed in. But I want you guys to totally ask some questions here. All right, so the chat is open. If you guys want to ask any questions, ask away. But anyone says anything crazy, I'll just kick them immediately. Chat should be open. Okay. 2 questions. How do you scan for put credits? Oh boy. Yeah, ratio. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing with ratio spreads, and I'm going to do another class on different types of spreads outside of debits and credits. But for my beginners, I highly recommend just debits and credits when you're starting. Once you master debits and credits, I will totally do another class for those that have gotten into that education part of it and understand what's going on. So I'll run through butterflies, iron condors, and there's a whole nother side to this spreads part. And I really think it's awesome once you guys figure it out. Okay, I'm going to go through the first question here. 2 questions. How do you scan for put credit spreads, and what's your exit point, ideal profit? So I'm going to, once this meeting ends, I'm going to take you through my thoughts on when I enter debit or credit spread, generally all based on the market, but I take spreads as I would take a naked option. I play breakouts, but I do this because sometimes breakouts fail. Sometimes they take a slow amount of time. So I'm always playing spreads because it could go in my favor, or even if it fails breakout, starts to chop around, whatever, spreads are there for me. They could, my strikes can still expire out of the money, and I'm good. If breakout fails and you're playing naked, you're taking the loss. If I'm selling you puts and a breakout fails, I'm chilling. That's going to expire out of the money, and your naked options losing your money, and I'm just making money. So I'll take you through how I find those. That's a great question. Buying spreads in the money on both strikes. Yes, it is. And I get that question a lot. Why would you not buy strikes in the money? Because those spreads are expensive. If you're buying a debit spread in the money, as I'm probably sure of, they are more expensive. So that spread now, you're only going to be able to profit like $20, $30. Because if you were to buy a debit spread, now I'm going to pull up a screenshot. I should have put up a screenshot of if you were to buy deep in the money. The profit potentially is much lower if you were to buy in the money, and say that thing goes against you, your risk to reward is horrible. So buying in the money strikes is just not the way to go for debit spreads. And as you play with spreads and how much they cost and your profit potential and get in there, you'll realize that just buying spreads in the money is really not the way to go. Yes, you can profit, but the risk to reward is just not worth it, in my opinion. Okay, so I'm getting a ton of questions. I'm definitely going to do this, send out a link again. So put credit spreads is basically we are making money off someone who bought puts. Yes. So when you buy something, just like you buy anything, say you buy an iPhone, you have to have someone who sell it to you. So when you're buying an option in the stock market, someone's there selling it to you. And sometimes it could be a fund, sometimes it could be some billionaire sitting in their house, or sometimes it could be me selling you a put. So that someone has to buy that. And I have to get into liquidity and finding the right tickers for options. But yes, so when you're doing a put credit spread, you're making money off someone who bought a put. And and someone who bought a silly put or whatever. You're making money off of someone else's put, and then you buy it back at a lower price and profit. Please go over the profit section one more time. Yes. What do you recommend for small accounts? Creditor spreads or debit spreads? I'm a fan of debit spreads for small accounts because if you think about it, as we've gone over, credit spreads, some of these here, you see this credit spread, say you have a $500 account, 168 max loss is a huge hit. So I'm not a fan of credit spreads with $500 accounts. I like a minimum $2,000 account for credit spreads because some of these strikes are going to take a huge hit to you if they go against you. And I'm sure if anyone is in that Tesla spread that I'm in, you'll see how these losses rack up quickly if you're not managing your risk well and having a tight stop loss. So I recommend debit spreads because the risk to reward here, as you can compare, is totally much different, and it's just directional, and you have to take some time for debit spreads. But once you develop that cushion with the debit spread, totally transfer over to credit spreads. So debit spreads for the smaller accounts. Do I have to own 100 shares to play spreads? Nope, not at all. Cash collateral for credits and debit spreads, you do not own anything. Could you explain what's collateral when you do credits? Okay, so again, that's where the complicated-ish part of spreads comes in. Like the debit spread, you receive the difference in profit if they expire in the money, as I've shown here. In this debit spread, as I've said, if you were to take this exact spread here and Tesla expires in the money, both of these strikes expire in the money, say Tesla closes at 7:30. This 7:25 strike will get exercised, and you will take those shares from your 7:20 call that you bought and you own and give it to the person who exercised that and receive the difference in profit from those shares, because obviously these are more expensive shares compared to whoever exercised that. So the opposite now for credit spreads. If this were to expire in the money, you have to pay the difference in these spreads because this 677.500 shares is more expensive than these 680 shares. So you pay the difference between those shares. And that's, again, where it gets a little complicated, but that's where your cash collateral comes in to save yourself if those do expire in the money. What do you recommend for small accounts? I think I've answered that so many times. Credit, again, debit spreads. Do you play monthly credits, debits? Does it make sense to play SPY only since they have 3 contracts per week that expire? You can have more profits essentially. Okay, so my personal style, I'm playing 1 to 2 weeks out maximum because I'm not really a patient guy where I'm going to wait for a debit spread to expire 1 month out. It's just not me, not who I am. Some people love that, and some people buy debit spread leaps. You can buy Tesla debit spread leaps for, much cheaper. Tesla leaps are thousands and thousands of dollars. You could buy leaps for Tesla for hundreds of dollars. It's a great way to profit, but as I've said, the way you profit is if they expire in the money. If you're buying a leap a year out, you got to wait a whole year to receive the full profit. And obviously, yes, you receive partial profit along the way, but it's a lot slower. So I'm going 1 to 2 weeks out. And again, as if you play naked options, guys, I get the question a lot, why don't you just play SPY? As you get closer to expiration, obviously 0 DTs are super cheap. You have to be able to, if you're selling these puts, you need these options to be worth something. If you're SPY, 1 DTE is very, very cheap. So you're not going to be able to get much unless you're going really close to the money, and that doesn't really leave you for much margin of error. So I do like to play SPY if I'm really confident on where it's going, but no, I don't play 1 DTE SPY a lot.